Pro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is here. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
And Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is alongside as well. Welcome, Pat.
I can't.
Pat, Governor Quinn has introduced a new pension plan. This one calls for a retirement age of 67, reduces the cost of living and benefit for retirees, and has workers paying more into the pension system. Is it a good idea?
Look, my wife is a public school teacher. I always say that, so I will benefit from her pension someday if I live long enough, I guess. This is a situation where we were cooking dinner, and we hired an incompetent cook, and we're all sitting around the table, and the grease got out of control, and the kitchen's on fire, and now it's about to spread to the whole house. And instead of doing something about it, we're still sitting around the table saying, "When's dinner?" And that's sort of what competing interests have done about the pension problem. We were led by incompetent people, probably idiots, in underfunding the pension in Illinois over a number of years, and now it has come home to roost. And whether we like it or not, whether you like it as someone who's paid into the pensions, or whether you think that people who are in the public dole are finally getting their comeuppance, wherever you are, you've got on the spectrum of concern about pensions. You've got to recognize that this simply cannot go on. Illinois is the lowest bond rating of any state in Moody's Investor Service. Standard & Poor's is talking about dropping us a couple of grades, not just one at a time. The whole financial health of the state rides on getting the pension problem under control. It's going to take till about 2045 under his plan to get it under control, if the numbers are all right. Republicans are sitting up to take notice. One of the problems in cutting pensions in Illinois is the benefits are protected by a constitutional amendment. You've got to amend the Constitution to change the pensions as the thought goes. Quinn's hybrid plan, which I'm not a lawyer, I don't know if it's going to work or not, if it'll pass constitutional muster, but it's really an alternative. You can keep the plan you've got, but if you do, you lose retirement health benefit, which was not guaranteed under the provisions that are held to be protected by the Constitution. Or you can keep your retirement health coverage and go into the newer pension plan, which pushes your retirement off to age 67, increases your contribution, I think, 3%, holds cost of living increases to 3% or half the consumer price index. If this is all there is to fix it, and my wife may hit me over the head because I'm talking about her pension, not mine, not directly anyway. If this is all it would take to fix it, it seems like this might be a reasonable course, because things are in just disastrous condition. 41 states have done something, and a number of municipalities besides have done something to modify their pension payouts to try to make up for the fact that everybody's sort of in the same boat. It's just that Illinois was so negligent for so long. Illinois is in a boat that's sinking faster than most of the states. I think whether you like what Quinn did or not, you've got to hand it to him. He's got a plan. Republicans are setting up to take notice. This may get tweaked along the line. The unions hate it, and they're paid to hate it, and it's understandable. But everybody needs to sit up and pay attention and get this thing fixed before the economy, the whole state government goes down the drain.
Jim, the governor has released his latest proposal on how to fix the pension system. Is it a good plan?
It's not a good plan if you're on it. As Pat just pointed out, his wife Karen is on it. And I'm sure, since she is not of retirement age as yet, the idea of when she thought her medical was going to be paid for, and now it may not be, or if she thought that cost of living raises would continue and so on and so forth, or if she thought she was going to retire at 62 and now it's going to be 67, all of those are drastic changes. As Pat pointed out, as far as changing the pension plan specifically, that would have to be agreed to by the rank and file. All of the unions, affected unions, would have to agree to it. I have heard some in the leadership think that will happen. I am not quite that optimistic that the unions are going to say, yes, please cut our benefits that are constitutionally guaranteed. But as Pat pointed out, this wasn't a problem that the state got into overnight. This is not a problem that 41 other states got into overnight. But at least someone has finally come up with a plan that, if these numbers are accurate, which when you start talking about government and accuracy of numbers, I get a little shaky, but at least it's something. We know that the state cannot afford to dig itself out of the pension obligation by continuing to accumulate debt. Let's presume just for a moment that the state starts to fully fund the current obligation. The past obligation is still out there, and the state certainly has no extra money to do that. If I were affected in this was my pension, I'd be upset. But as a taxpayer that it certainly hasn't been known as being a fan of Governor Quinn, at least it's something. At least it's a number that says we can cut our expense by a certain amount, by X amount, that hopefully will get us out of this hole by 2045, when we know that to do nothing continues the peril to the point that the state, turns out the lights and goes home because we can't afford to operate the state government any longer.
The semi-visible element of this, and I don't know how much is dependent upon it, but I think quite a lot. I think there's also a presumption that we're going to shift the pension responsibilities for schools back to the school districts and back to the universities. And that is a huge amount of money. I think it would average about $1 million a year per district, more for the bigger districts, less for the smaller districts. With that in mind, that is tantamount to a tax increase. They can't eat those kinds of things. They're going to have to go back to their voters for more money. And that's part of this plan that the Republicans are choking on, because they're saying it may not be a state tax increase that takes care of the problem, but you're going to be forcing a local tax increase in any district that can get one, or maybe draconian cuts in the way the kids are educated. They put school bus transportation subsidies in the state on the table. They've already been cut. Now they're talking about cutting them more. This is not by any means the totality of the pain that's going to be suffered in the process of trying to get these pensions back under control. If there is satisfaction in this, I would suggest that the voters consider identifying those legislators who are still around, and there are quite a few of them, I suspect, who've allowed this to go on, who've in fact given away the store in the good times without any thought for how it was going to be paid for down the line. Maybe the voters ought to hunt them down and get rid of them if there's satisfaction in that, but they've got to face the reality of the numbers.
Not to point out any similarity between Pat and Ted Nugent, but you may want to be careful about suggesting that people hunt down their legislators.
Well,
you might get a visit from the Secret Service.
I meant for purposes of negative votes, and I think given recent publicity, I doubt I have anything the Secret Service is interested in.
You both mentioned 2045 as the magic year this would be cured. Can lawmakers stick with the plan long enough to make that happen?
Well, they got to implement it first, but no, I would have my doubts about the stick-to-itiveness of it.
Oh, looky here, as my friend Tim Middleton used to like to say, looky here. When the pensions were set up, there was a plan to pay for them. It's just that they chronically underfunded the plan, or we wouldn't have this problem now. What keeps them from chronically underfunding the plan in the future? I have no idea. If we need a constitutional amendment, maybe we need a constitutional amendment that requires them to fully fund the pensions. Of course, I guess we also have a constitutional provision that requires them to balance the budget year to year, and nobody seems to pay any real attention to that.
Well, they balanced the budget by underfunding the pension.
By
That's
underfunding
exactly
the
how they did
and
it.
shoving the debt into the next
right.
year.
Mm-hmm. We need to take a break. We'll have more in a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the music program with Dr. Teresa Crane.
Have you always wanted to learn how to play the piano? Maybe you wanted to learn Beethoven's Für Elise. Or maybe you like a more popular style like Jim Brickman. Or maybe you like jazzy blues. You can learn all this and more right here at Lewis and Clark Community College.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
When you open a book, you can explore new lands, make new friends, and discover new adventures. There are amazing possibilities when you open your mind to reading. Explore new worlds. Read.
60-inch screen, high definition. Football season is coming up. You can watch it right here. What do you think?
I'll take it.
Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're right. I don't need it.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle, Pat Gowan, and Jim Schrader here. Jim, before the break, we were talking about Governor Quinn's proposal to deal with the pension system. He's also proposing $1 a pack increase in the cigarette tax to help deal with the Medicaid problems that exist. He said without that increase, Medicaid could collapse. Should we go forward with $1 a pack cigarette tax increase?
That sounds like this is a repeat of the first segment that we did today. Right now, according to the numbers released by Governor Quinn in his speech, the state's Medicaid system is facing a $2.7 billion deficit. The first step of this plan, as Pat pointed out on the last plan that we discussed that seemed to be rearranging the deck chairs here, the first thing would do is reduce the number of recipients by 8%. About 215 million people would be taken off the rolls, people that are currently on the rolls. The next thing would be that the $1 a pack tax increase would raise $337 million based upon today's volume of cigarettes, so nothing going down, nothing going up, for which the federal government would match that 337. So now the state would be 774 million up from current levels. So they reduce the number of people, increase the funding, and that's allegedly going to make Medicaid solvent. Like the problem that I have with the first story that we talked about today is, number one, I'm not sure I trust the numbers. And number two, it would seem to me that to get solvent, not only are you going to have to increase the funding for Medicaid, but you're also going to have to reduce the expenses. And I don't think it's fair to try to reduce the expenses by just saying we're not going to pay the doctors, the hospitals, and the providers $675 million. And that's the number that is being thrown around, is they're going to cut reimbursements $675 million. Well, that's fine if you're just trying to balance your checkbook by saying, okay, well, I'll go to McDonald's 2 times less this week. But these are services that have been provided according to a contract, according to a very stringent fee schedule that is mapped out by Medicaid, by the way. And now to just arbitrarily say we're not going to pay it anymore isn't fair to the providers that have provided the services in good faith. The 215 million people that are cut from the rolls, okay, if I qualified yesterday, how come I don't qualify today? And the big hole in this, anytime you start talking about a user tax, is that 337 million is contingent upon selling 337 million packs of cigarettes. Well, anybody who has a building that overlooks the Clark Bridge can assure you that there are whole lots of people that are driving that 2 miles over and making a left-hand turn into one of the gas stations over there to buy their gas that is usually 25 to 30 cents a gallon cheaper, and buy a carton of cigarettes that instead of paying 98 cents a pack in tax, they pay 17 cents a pack. So on a carton of 10, you're talking about saving, $8.20. You couple that with saving $5 or $6 on a fill up of gas, There's a whole lot of people who are doing it. I understand that the people that are running these numbers live in Springfield, where it's a long drive to Indiana or a long drive to Missouri. And I understand they're in Chicago, where it's a long drive to Wisconsin or to Indiana to Iowa. But I can tell you in the border counties, I can't believe you institute another $1 a pack tax on cigarettes that the volume will remain the same.
Pat, Governor Quinn says we need $1 a pack increase in the tax on cigarettes, and that's to save the Medicaid system from collapsing. Will it work? Should we do that?
Sin taxes are always easy. You don't want to pay the tax, don't smoke. Tax on liquor, you don't want to pay the tax, don't drink. Those are always the easy taxes, relatively speaking, and the ones in which you're most likely to get support. I share Jim's concerns about whether the volume will hold up and all of that, how much dependence you can put on those numbers. Very, very fragile in lots of ways, I think. The Medicaid cuts disturbing in some ways. New eyeglasses every other year instead of every year, cutting back on the incontinence supplies for some of the unfortunates, cutting back on group therapy, or eliminating group therapy, I guess, chiropractic services. A lot of fraud will be taken out of it, some people might really be hurt. But the thing what I focused on in the discussion, Anderson Hospital in Maryville says it does about $6 million a year in Medicaid business with Illinois. And right now, Illinois owes them $4.5 million. So they're already that far behind in the payments to a relatively small hospital with a relatively small amount of bills. Now we're talking about stiffing them, that is, cutting back on the reimbursement levels that they would get for whatever services that they continue to provide. So the hospital's got to eat that, except hospitals don't really eat those expenses. What they do is they shift them off to those of us who are fortunate enough to have insurance or fortunate enough to have the means to pay our own medical bills. So for the people who don't like Obamacare and the people who are worried about socialized medicine, this is another component of shifting socialized medicine. And instead of equalizing it across a broad population, it's going to be shifted more again on the people, generally the people who are better paid, have better jobs, have good fringe benefits and so forth. They're going to take another hit off this because the cost of this goes somewhere. And I think the cost of it's going to be added to a lot of people's medical bills. So the failure to address healthcare in a national way manifests itself in this issue. If you had a more logical, ordered way of delivering medical services to everyone at any strata of wealth, you wouldn't be having this kind of problem with this kind of answer in Springfield right now. But given the circumstances we've got, again, as with the pension thing, it's hard for me to fault this when I don't have a better plan up my sleeve.
Well, the concern is that when you start talking about, and I know this is not a discussion necessarily of socialized medicine, but the only way that you can control those costs is if all of the providers work for the government. Because then you can absolutely say, this is our fee schedule to hospital A, hospital B, hospital C, pharmacist A, B, C, throughout the line, that this is absolutely our fixed cost schedule because you people work for us. As long as you have doctors and hospitals that are supposed to operate independently, they have to cover their costs somehow. And as Pat pointed out, if their Medicaid is cut again, and you pointed out Oliver Anderson was owed $4 million. We had a story recently where St. Anthony's Hospital here in Alton was owed over $3 million. And those are just two within, spitting distance of where we are right now. I don't know how the socialized medicine aspect is going to cover it either, unless it truly becomes you charge those who have, i.e. have money or have insurance, and provide for free or under cost for those who don't.
You will have the way to tell if you have socialized medicine, and we have socialized medicine. We have it now. The way to tell if you don't have it is dead bodies at the curb. When you pass people laying in the street dead because no ambulance picked them up and took them to any hospital, when you reach that point, you do not have socialized medicine. But short of that, you really don't. It's just a question of the way in which you pay for it. I think what you suggest is an extreme along the continuum. It may be able to be accomplished somewhere else on the spectrum. I mean, Obamacare is not exactly the ideal solution from an actuarial point of view and from an accountancy point of view. But it's probably better than what we have, because in the end, when we deny Medicaid services to somebody and say, okay, we used to pay for this, but now we're not going to pay for it, if that brings them back into the medical system without Medicaid, they're still going to get treatment. They go to the ER, there's a federal law that says they've got to be stabilized and treated. We simply let things get worse until they become emergencies, and then they become a burden and they're paid for some other way. There's no logic in the way we're paying for it. So when you're underfunding Medicaid, necessarily, you just don't have enough revenue coming in. To me, this is a further example of an aspect of the failure of the system we've got. Excuse me, lost my voice here. Last word.
You need to go to the ER.
Yeah, medical care.
I'm insured. I got that Medicaid. I'll take care of it.
We'll take a break and have more after this.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, you know, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year mass comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arch-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Sheffel. Pat Yowen's here, along with Jim Schrader. Pat, Senator Dick Durbin says it breaks his heart to see the shape East St. Louis is in, and he says a lot of the problems are because the bars are open too late, and that's resulted in more crime. He's appealing to the mayor to have the bars close earlier. Is Durbin correct in his thinking?
Well, the mayor says we need the revenue from the late-night bars to support the police protection. Durbin is saying you don't need as much police protection if you don't have the violence that comes with having the late-night bars. So that's where they are, and I don't know which one's right, but I think Durbin's involvement in this is sort of fascinating. You've got the guy, he is the assistant majority leader of the United States Senate. He's the number 2 Democrat, number 2 majority member of the United States Senate with all that's going on in the country. It's interesting that he's investing his time and energy in having not one, but repeated, protracted discussions and debates and face-offs with the mayor, person to person or otherwise, over this issue. I don't know that more political muscle has ever been brought to bear against a reasonably small problem in a reasonably small town in the United States of America. Now, Durbin grew up in East St. Louis. He does have a soft spot in his heart for the town. We've talked about this at some length, he and I, through the years. One of the issues for me in seeing his involvement is I don't know where he gains. He's coming up for election in a couple of years, but this is not going to get him votes. He's a Democrat. East St. Louis delivers Democrats. I don't think anything he's going to do is going to help him any more than he would have been helped in East St. Louis. I don't think he's going to hurt himself there either, but actually I think it'll probably be a wash. So he's using his energy for something. I think you have a number of St. Clair County Democrats, leaders, who pump money down there to forget out the vote stuff and then look the other way to see where it goes. And keep at arm's length when the indictments come, whether they're for voter fraud or homicide or whatever comes out of there. I think Durbin's rocking their boat with this, because you're not seeing the county's Democrat leaders carping to Mayor Parks about close these places, close these places. I say that the U.S. Attorney's done it, the sheriff has done it, maybe the coroner's done it, but I don't see broad political support for Durbin's position. So I don't think he's got much of anything to gain, which makes me think that this is an honest effort on his part to try to do something about a place that he cares about.
I think it's an honest effort, but I think you may have just nailed it why it's U.S. Senator Durbin and not local state representative or state senator that's down there dealing with it, is because it's got a lot of people really hacked off that this would be suggested by a political leader other than one of their own to change how they do business. Durbin doesn't need East St. Louis to maintain his seat. Thank you very much. So if he comes down there and ruffles a few feathers, okay, whatever. But if a state rep or a state senator ruffled those feathers, it potentially could harm them. Now, do I think Senator Durbin probably has his heart in the right place because he remembers East St. Louis when it was better off than it is today? Yes, I'm sure he does have his heart in the right place. Do I think closing the bars would have one iota of effect on the crime rate in East St. Louis? I don't, and for my show and tell, I will point to prohibition, which we do know that every alcohol-related crime went down during prohibition. No, it didn't. You know, right? To say that, well, you know, we'll close the bars at 2 instead of 3, or 1 instead of 2, is not necessarily going to affect the crime rate. One could say that just means that people have to drink earlier, or I could say that, well, if the bars close earlier, that just gives me an excuse to go out on the street and start shooting earlier, because now I don't have any place to go. So no, I don't think it will have any effect on the crime at all. I applaud Senator Durbin for drawing attention to the fact, but it's not going to fix it.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, has been here, along with Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph. I'm Kent Scheffel. We'll see you next time.